I knew that this was not going to be a relationship worth pursuing when I woke up from having emergency surgery on my ankle and realized that I was happier being in the hospital than going home to the person that was there waiting for me. This is the LeNora Faye Show. Hello, I'm your host, LeNora Faye. Welcome to what is actually the very first official episode of the LeNora Faye Show, unofficially called I Lowered My Standards for a Week and Broke My Ankle and Can No Longer Wear High Heels. I laugh now, but at the time, I wasn't laughing. Now, just to clarify, this is not a domestic violence story. It does involve another person, and I'll get into that. But again, with the intention of this show is to share experiences that I've had, that I've navigated through, and to explore the deeper aspects of the experience, what I've learned, maybe in this case, red flags, but also I'm here to entertain you. And so I'm going to entertain you with a broken ankle story. Shout out to Canadian healthcare. I will say it's nice to leave a hospital without a bill. I never had that experience before. I mean, I never had an experience being hospitalized before. I also learned about love bombing, what that meant, which is funny because, at the time, so this happened 3 years ago, and I'm ready to share this experience because there's enough time between the event happening and present. It happened during Canada coming out of lockdown, and Canada was strict during that time period in our history. And this story is me seeking new adventures, and boy, did I get an adventure. And I still can't walk on my toes, and I've been a toe walker since I was 2 years old. I started wearing high heels at 12. And then at 38, my high heel career as I know it ended. That made me sound like I'm a hooker. I'm not. I just liked being tall. I'm 5'3". I was 5'3" in 7th grade. I was tall back then, and I discovered high heels, and I miss them. But the funny thing is throughout this experience that we'll get into in a minute, I have learned to be fine with how tall I am, or how short I am, or however you want to spin it. So, silver linings for everything. And again, that's kind of the point. That is the point of sharing stories. Again, we experience things, we go through things, and there are beautiful experiences, and then there are not so beautiful experiences, but somehow things do come together and we grow from it. And again, because there's been enough time between the event that I'm going to share and now, I can see it. It still makes me scratch my head because you would think that I fell in the mountains. I live near Banff National Park. This was actually supposed to be a romantic experience. And I ended up in the hospital. And I was wearing flat shoes at the time. All right, well, let's get into the story. Canada was coming out of lockdown. I was spending a lot of time at a lake cabin in British Columbia with someone who had been my companion, for lack of a better word. We weren't in a relationship, we weren't dating, but we had been together for 6 years. And we weren't even together. We were two single people that enjoyed each other's company. We had been COVID companions because at the time, this was the rule in Canada. Because I live alone, this other person lived alone. And you were allowed to have, like, what do they call it? A cohort situation. We had traveled together a bit type of thing. It was a sexual relationship, or sexual companionship. You know, we liked each other. But this was not somebody that, you know, we had separate lives. I wanted that. I've never been... I've been in one relationship, but anyway, I don't want to get into that. It's just, I've lived my life as a single person for 40 years, and it has served me well. And I will share more of that in another episode because I am transitioning to another experience. But anyway, I had been in that for 6 years, and I had this feeling that it was time for me to experience and explore something else. I had an agreement, my companion and I, we had an agreement that, you know, we were free to pursue other opportunities with other people. The thing is, if we were going to continue being sexual, we just let each other know. So that was my personal life at that time. Also, I was very active online with my advocacy work at the time and meeting a lot of different people from all over the place, lots of Zoom calls, lots of audio chats, just meeting people, collaborating with people. It was great experience, developing friendships, and somewhere along the line, started up a flirty thing with somebody who started to pursue me. And this person does not live anywhere near me, but lived in the same continent, so North America. And one thing led to another, and he said, once the borders open, I'm going to fly and we're going to meet. Now, this person, we had been Zoom calling, video chatting, all that stuff. And I'm going to say as a side note, because I'm going to try and keep this, to share things in a way that don't distract from the story, don't get you all confused as to where the story is going. I have never been I've never met people online for the sake of dating or hooking up. Like, I don't do apps. I don't do, I need to meet somebody and see where it goes. I am not getting on a website. I tried it once, but here's the thing. I'm an older millennial. I went to a virtual high school because I had a career when I was 15 years old teaching music out of my parents' basement. And I couldn't go to school full-time, like regular high school anymore, except for fine arts classes. I needed an alternative school. So I've already had that experience in like 99, 2001, like that time period before Wi-Fi, before all this, before apps. I've had the experience of getting to know somebody online without seeing them physically, at least on video, because that didn't exist back then. And, you know, being super disappointed when you meet them in person. So I've always been adamant about meeting people in person and seeing the vibe, feeling the chemistry before anything happens. But during this particular time, I'm meeting people all over. We are in a time in our history where you can't travel, you can't meet people, you're supposed to stay inside, all that stuff. And Canada was strict. So I had been chatting with this person via Zoom, via video, and a friendship had developed, and the agreement was, okay, I felt, okay, let's check this out. Let's see if there's anything there. Of course, you catch the feelings, and you have this thing in your head, and for the age I am optimistic and a bit naive sometimes, which, again, was part of the lesson. But this was, let's just casual, let's see what happens. And I assumed that this person that was going to have the emotional intelligence and the intellectual intelligence to follow through with that, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So, where are we in the story? I'm in a comfortable companionship situation. It's great, easy, no commitment. The borders are opening, traveling's happening, things have developed over the course of many months with someone that I've met online, I've been video chatting, they want to come see me, they're interested in me, and I'm like, well, I'm free to explore this, so let's explore this. We planned a week, I planned a whole bunch of activities, they'd never been to my part of the world, and again, I live near the mountains, it's very scenic, it's beautiful, the Alberta Canadian prairies, this is just something different. And we had, this is the weird, well, it's not weird. You sext, you have sexual banter. I was feeling something he was feeling something. So cool. We decided to meet. I had to, first of all, detangle myself from the companionship situation. That was a little tricky, but I'm like, I'm doing this. We have not spoken since. That was not intentional. I guess, we were over it. And And here's the thing. In hindsight, this person that was pursuing me was actually a palate cleanser. And I'll save that for the end of this story. But I'm here to entertain you with the broken ankle part. So that's the stage. I'm being pursued. We're going to spend a week together. He's coming to me. And we're turning off our phones. We're here to enjoy each other's company and see where this goes. I had planned a very full week of all sorts of activities outside of the bedroom. So in case there was nothing, we could just hang out as friends. And that was going to be all cool. You know, that was our agreement. And we thought that we had felt something for one another. It kind of got to that point. I think that just kind of happens. I go pick him up at the airport. I will say I was expecting to feel something. I didn't know what. I'll speak to up to the age of my 38-year-old self. I had never been in love. I knew I hadn't met my person. In hindsight, I already knew this isn't going to be my person because I'm feeling like, wait, this is it. I go and pick up this person at the airport. I don't have a inner reaction that I thought. I was just really present. He gets into my car and we had hugged. He gets into my car and immediately starts backseat driving because he wants to be helpful. And this person is also one of the least helpful people I've ever met in my entire life. I kind of already knew that, but in person, it really became clear really quickly. And immediately, and I think my reaction was like, oh, you're that person? And because we had a friendship at first, this is like a banter. I like to banter with people. But that did not clue in. He did not get it. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So we grab pizza, we get back to my place. He's immediately clingy. But I thought it was cute. But I was also like, oh, okay. And then we hook up. And that was fine. Just to speed the story along, I realized quite quickly that this person, fine in bed, have fun in bed, but completely useless out of it. To the point where I also quickly realized this is not somebody I want to be seen with in person. Just everything about them is not my jam. Let me say, let's put this person in etiquette school. And I don't know if this is a Canadian thing. It was just, you see how people are, how they interact, how they walk, how they carry themselves, and everything about this person was a no. But again, I was just rolling with it. I'm like, this is just a week. We're going to have fun. I'm not introducing this person to anyone. And I thought that would be fine because there wasn't anything, like my alarm bells weren't ringing. I felt, here's the thing, I felt in control of the situation because I was on my own, I was on my home turf. This person wasn't allowed to do anything that I didn't want them to do. And I'm a very strong personality where you're not going to make me do anything I don't want to do. So I felt in control of the situation. And I thought that was enough. I did think that was enough. And in hindsight, I don't think I could have done anything differently once this person was here. Again, I had packed the week of activities outside of the bedroom. So we were going to amusement parks, we're going to the mountains, there was a lot of things to do, going to movies, all that stuff. So by day three, I played the role. What would it be like to be with this person all the time? And it became very clear, oh, this is just not going to work. This is not going to work. I can handle him for a week, but no. But I also liked the physical aspect of it was nice. And I'm not talking about just the sex. I'm just saying that, oh, give it a chance. I was telling myself, give it a chance. Because it was an adventure and there was still something I was curious about to experience. But if I had been really honest with myself at that point, I would have maybe toned it down a bit. But we were here having fun. We were having fun. There was no reason why we couldn't continue to have fun. There really wasn't. I think what was happening at the time is that this person, he was immediately planning our future, like constantly. And I was just putting up walls internally constantly. It wasn't affecting the bedroom activities at all. It was just me internally going, nope, I don't see how this is going to work. Nope, this can't be my person, right? So I was carrying that inside and there was no way that I could share that with him because he just would have, there was no point. There was no point. That's just how I felt. To him, it was a 10 out of 10. He said that repeatedly. And I'm like, cool. You know, fine. It's not going any further than this. So I think we get to day 3. I think it's day 3. Because he was there for the whole week. Day number 3, let's see, we'd explored the city a bit. We went to the amusement park. Right, day 3, we went to the mountains. That was our first part. And then the next day, we were going to explore the mountains further, which is when the accident happened. So there were a few things that were kind of, I think life was kind of hinting at me, because I said, well, let's go into Banff for the evening, and I want to show you this section, because I did want him to see the landscape. And I remember that it's so beautiful, and it's so, I remember before he showed up, I remember going to this spot, and I was going to take him to this spot in the mountains. It's stunning. If you have not been to Banff National Park, it is stunning. And I live really close to it. And I remember before he arrived, I remember thinking, I'm going to have this really romantic adventure with this person. I don't know if this is my person, but I've truly never had a romantic experience where I felt completely loved just in that moment with another person who I was sexually active with, for lack of a way to explain that differently. So I was anticipating a certain feeling, and I couldn't quite describe it, but I knew that if I felt it, that would be the feeling. And I was so curious. Again, this was prior to him showing up. I went to this spot. I'm like, I'm going to take him here. He's going to put his arms around me, and I'm going to feel something amazing. And it doesn't have to mean anything. I'm just going to feel something amazing. So I take him to that spot. He puts his arms around me, and I'm thinking, okay, I don't feel what I thought I was going to feel. All right. It is what it is. It is what it is. We go back home, and then the next day is going to be the full trip into the mountains. Like, there was a lot. We went, we went on the gondola going up the mountain. Like, it was great, and it was gloomy and raining, and I think the wildfire smoke from British Columbia, California was piling up. So we actually couldn't see the mountains that day. Driving in, and again, it's normally a stunning drive. So first thing, we're on the road, we're on the highway, going to the park, going to Banff National Park from my city, and we almost got run off the road by a massive monster motorhome. And I'm like, this never happens to me. And dude was backseat driving like there's no tomorrow. And I was not having it, but I wasn't saying anything. And then that happened, and then he proceeded to tell me how he would have reacted. And I'm going, buddy, I don't care. I'm just going to keep driving. Stop talking. So we get into the park, we take the gondola, it starts to rain, and by then, I'm really getting a full understanding of this person, and I'm going, he's a child. And it's not even that. Everyone has their preferences, and again, not to slam the dude, but we didn't mesh. Again, it wasn't off-putting. It just, I didn't feel anything. I felt nothing, but again, I was having fun. It was just an experience. I realized, okay, I'm not putting any stock into this. It's just an experience. It's not horrible. It's just not what I'm looking for, or not what I want to experience. So, okay, that's what it's going to be. It starts to rain. We go back down the mountain, and then we're going to drive out of the park, but then it kind of stopped raining, and we went through some beautiful waterfalls. So we are technically in the town of Banff, but it's quite vast, and we decided to go off on a trail. So now I don't dress appropriately for anything. By that, I mean I'm always in a dress. I wasn't wearing high heels. I was in flat shoes to walk in, but I'm in a white dress and some sort of pink shawl and whatever. I'm here to look pretty. Not necessarily functional for a trail walk. So we see some waterfalls, and he wants to see them, and it's starting to get nicer out. So I park the car, and we take this trail, and it's really beautiful. And he decides he wants to go up this hill. that's off the trail. And I'm going, okay, sure. And we go up. And I'm not feeling a particular way. It's just, I love that area. And I hadn't really been to that particular fall, or I hadn't really walked that trail. So it was kind of new for me, even though I've been to Banff many, many times. And so we go up this hill. It's off the beaten path. And we get to this clearing, and it's really nice. And it was just really open. And again, mountain air, the trees. I'm using my hands to describe something you can't see. And it was really peaceful. And I don't know what he was talking about something. I don't remember what it was. But I suddenly realized that we were quite high up. And I said, I don't know why I said this. I said, are you trying to kill me? Because I think we were looking down, and it was quite a ways down. And I there was something in me going, I think we went a little bit too high up. Like, I wasn't equipped for that. But I just followed because he wanted to go up there and whatever. Another mistake. So we start to go down. And I mentally, like, inside I wasn't feeling a certain way. And it wasn't that something was super off. I started to feel that I'm going to be claustrophobic with this person. But I wasn't giving myself, I did not have the space, the emotional space at the moment, to even dwell on anything, because we were having this adventure. He was continuously talking, and I'm a talker, and it was just having fun. And then it got not fun really quickly. So we were descending down this hill in the mountains. He offered his hand to help me down this particular part of the incline. And I said no, because in that moment, I was feeling that he was never going to be of help. I don't know. It all happened really quickly. And the thing is when you go through something that's traumatic, your brain has a way of, it seems to have a way of protecting yourself from recalling certain things. I had this experience when my mom died. You know, leading up to it, there's certain things that I know my brain has protected me from really dwelling in because it was a traumatic experience. This is another example of that happening. Freeze framing this moment here for you, the listener. I am about to take what is my final step down this incline before life changed and I can no longer wear high heels. Dude offered his hand, but for some reason, I just knew he was not going to be of any help. Or here's the thing, he may have been of help. But looking back, I realized I did not trust or respect this guy in any capacity to accept whatever help he could offer me. So I said no. And all I remember next is taking a step down, but losing my balance. And I'm normally really good at falling, which sounds weird, but I am. Years of high heel experience. I've tripped, I've stumbled, and I've always landed on my feet really well. Like missing several steps and landing on stilettos and everything intact. And here I was in flat shoes, spending a week with someone who, in hindsight, whose energy was so wrong for me. But anyway, I stepped down, it's dirt, it's kind of wet, it's grass in the mountains. Something happened. I lost my balance. I landed, I think, I would have had to land on my left foot because that's the ankle that broke. I landed, and I'm trying to recall this. I landed and I either felt, I'm trying to think through this logically. It happened so quick. I landed, I heard a snap. It wasn't a snap, it was a crack. I heard something loud. It was the sound of a bat connecting with a ball, baseball, okay? That's what it sounded like to me. Immediately, I went down. I sat down because I didn't fall on my back. I sat down. And I immediately knew something was wrong. I could not tell you what in that moment. I did not even know what had happened. My brain immediately thought something happened to my knee because the sound was so loud to me. And immediately I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't tell you what it was. There was no blood. There was nothing sticking out. I did not know what had happened, but something had happened. And I said, something's wrong. I said, something is wrong. Buddy here completely fell apart. So at this point in the story, he's of zero use to me. In life, after that, he became of zero use to me. So this story is not about him. So I'm sitting there, what turned out to be in the dirt, in a white dress. I know something is wrong. I can't tell you what. I'm in the mountains. I don't know exactly where we are. And I have to make a decision. Now, when I'm telling you this story, I'm looking... I can see this happening now. I'm not in... Well, actually, to be honest, my heart is going a little bit right now, which tells me that there's a part of me that remembers that trauma. And I had never had an experience like this before. And when it comes to fight or flight, I'm a fighter. So... I don't know what's wrong. I know something is wrong. And my instinct was not to move my legs. Like, I didn't even try yet. And this is where things get a little fuzzy. It might have been the 5 months of opioids I was on after this experience. I don't know. I was given a lot of drugs that night by the EMTs. But anyway, I sat for a moment. I said, something's wrong. Buddy was falling apart. Like, he was crying. He was shaking. He was saying a bunch of stuff. And I was telling him to shut up. And to me, that's an immediate turnoff. Like, you're never going to be a part of my life if you're going to be that person. Like, I mean this as far as potential partnership. If you're a friend that's like that, that's one thing. If you are saying you're going to be like, if you're saying that you're my soulmate and you're going to be my life partner and you act like that in an emergency, no, we are not doing this. I'm strong enough, and I don't care what's happening to me. I will somehow pull it together and figure it out. If it's meant for me to have a partner, that person has to match that part for me. They have to I just knew that. And so this was the universe saying, this is so not your person. Male or female, does not matter. This is not your person. But I didn't have time to think about that. There was something wrong with me and I needed to do something. So in that moment, I tried to lift my leg. Now, if you're squeamish, and this does not involve blood, but if you're squeamish, I'm going to give you a warning to plug your ears for a minute. You won't know when to unplug. But I attempted, I lifted from my thigh and my knee, and I could feel, like, I could wiggle I think I could wiggle my toes. I knew I could feel my foot. I could feel my leg, my calf, but there was something missing at the ankle. And I'll explain what happened later. So immediately I knew I couldn't walk. Everything stops. Everything stops in that moment. I'd never had an experience like this. I never want to have that experience again. So I thought, there's no way we can get to my car. I don't even know where my car is at this point. I could look on my Google map, but there was no roads registering. So I could see my car was somewhere, but, and I was in Banff technically, but there was no road as to where we would be. So I only had one option, to call 911, call an ambulance. And side note here, this is a shout out to my late mother. Since childhood, my mother has always told me to carry my Alberta healthcare card. Now, if you're not Canadian, and I know the majority of my audience is not Canadian, every province has a healthcare card and you carry it with you, and this is our Canadian healthcare insurance, right? This is not work insurance. This is what, your basic health care that Canadians get, where we go to a hospital, you have it with you, you're not charged anything as far as hospital services go. This does not apply to dental or eyewear or anything like that. So my mom always instilled me, carry your Alberta healthcare card. And I had switched purses. I was, not prepared for any kind of emergency, but I had my healthcare card. So, because they ask you for that. You're on your deathbed and they ask you for that. So I called 911 and I said, I don't know where we are. And I was starting to go into shock. And Buddy here was not from the area, had no clue, was of zero help. And I had to repeatedly tell him to shut up, because I was going through a crisis and he was not helping. So I called 911. I said, I have to call 911 because I couldn't walk. My body knew not to move. I was sitting in the dirt. It was starting to rain. Called 911. Did not know where we are. They had to put, they were doing? Because again, I knew something was happening. So I was going into shock and I was trying to explain where we were, but I had no markings. I said, we're by waterfalls, which was not of help. And I imagine they could pinpoint my location somehow. So, but they had to patch in search and rescue, because they would have to have search and rescue with an ambulance. They were explaining this to me, and it was starting, nothing was sinking in. They said, do you want an ambulance? And I said, yes. So I just had to trust that they would somehow be able to find my location, and the person that was with me had to go find the nearest road to flag down the ambulance and search and rescue. And however they figured out where I was, they did. And at this point, I'm in the woods, in the mountains, by myself, but I don't care. It's better for this buddy to go run and meet the ambulance and me be alone than have him in my vicinity. Oh, this is why I went celibate for a year after this experience. So, you know what? I'm just going to pause for a second because, there's more to the story, but it's therapeutic for me to tell the story and laugh about it because it's absurd. It's scary, but it's absurd. And obviously I'm okay. So if you're listening to this, you're going to feel what you're feeling. If you know me, you know that I'm fine. If you don't know me and you're listening to this and you're feeling a certain way, take a minute. This is a story for entertainment purposes. And I realize that I maybe have undersold how scary that moment was, but this is how I act in an emergency. It's like, all right, I have to do something. But I am also aware that I did not feel unsafe. I didn't have time to think about bears in the woods. Now at the time of me recording this story, telling you this story, this whole, man in the woods, bear in the woods thing, which is not really a laughing matter. It didn't even, that wasn't something I was thinking about at the time. That was not making the rounds of the internet, at least to my knowledge. So, anyway, Buddy has run off to go meet the ambulance. And I'm sitting there, but I'm really going into shock, and I don't know what to do, and I am trying to keep calm. I do not at this point remember if I said anything to myself. I was just aware that I was alive and there. Now, a family of 4, so a man, a woman, and 2 younger people, were walking by in the distance, and they spotted me, and they immediately all ran over. They said, "Are you okay?" And I don't remember what I said to them, but I said, "I can't move. The person with me has gone to find the ambulance." And they just took over. So I think, from what I remember, it was a man, and there was 2 teenage boys around that age. The woman stayed with me, and I said they've sent an ambulance and search and rescue, and I pointed to the direction that the guy had left. I don't even know what to call him at this point. I think I just said he's my friend. So I said, he's gone that way. And so they took off to go find him. I said, he doesn't know the area. He does not know where he is. So they went to go find him, to go find the ambulance. And the lady stayed with me. And by then she had laid me on my back. And it was starting to rain. And she propped me up. I think she used my purse to prop my head up. She held my hand, and I just let myself go into shock. I knew something was wrong. There was nothing I could do, and she stayed with me. I don't remember if she spoke. I really don't know. And I just laid there, and I let myself just be what I needed to be. Here's the thing, like, I didn't feel any pain. I don't recall feeling any pain. I was just there in my body, and something was happening. I don't know how long it was, but I was lying there staring at the sky, and I could see the trees, and my hand was being held, and then I heard a bunch of voices, and then I was surrounded by a bunch of people. They were asking me questions. They asked me for identification, healthcare card. I said, "Here, I couldn't point. I said, my purse has my Alberta healthcare card because they start the paperwork. See, carry your insurance cards with you. And I don't even care if you're walking to the grocery store. Just carry it with you." That's the moral of this story. So they take my information, all my ID, everything is there. They have to check all of my body because they don't know what the injury is. I said I don't recall hitting my head, trying to answer their questions, but something is wrong. And at some point they figured out, okay, it's this leg, and so they have to administer. And I thought, okay, so by this point I recognize there's two people I can see. They're both male EMTs, very nice, very polite. One's talking to me, and I'm trying to be funny. I'm saying, "Why did I wear this white dress?" And he's like, "Are you getting married?" I'm like, "Hell no." And he's present and keeping me talking. And the other one has grabbed my hand and it says, "Okay, do you want fentanyl or morphine?" And I thought he was joking. I said, "Ha ha ha," or whatever. And he said, "No, seriously, which one would you prefer?" And I was like, "Oh, I guess I need this." And I said fentanyl because I have never had either. I don't know why I said fentanyl, but I did. So suddenly I'm being administered drugs and they say, "Okay, we have to move you." And it very quickly was determined that it was my ankle. Something had happened to my ankle, my left ankle. And I could feel pain, but by then I was very drugged up. And so they explained that they were going to lift me onto a stretcher. I suspect there was about 6 people there to carry me because they had to put me on a stretcher, and it was raining. So I'm lifted onto a stretcher, and now I'm just recalling from memory because I don't remember what I felt like. I just was looking at this guy being lifted onto a stretcher. I'm assuming it was a stretcher. I couldn't see anything. Being zipped up because it's raining. So they zip you up in like this body bag with a clear plastic thing so you can see. And I'm being carried to what, again, is assuming is an ambulance. And I remember saying, the person with me doesn't know where he is. And okay, here's the thing. After I gave them all the information, I'm like, what's going to happen to my car? I'm so attached to my vehicle. What's going to happen to my Mazda CX-5? So Buddy had the keys to my vehicle, and he was going to follow one of the search and rescue people because they had to transport me to the hospital in Banff, which I'd never been to. So I'm on a stretcher being carried somewhere to the ambulance. I get in and I'm being asked a bunch of questions, what happened, and I just answering, and the EMT was very, very nice, and we were having a conversation. I remember having a conversation with him. It was very lovely. It was very comforting, very soothing. We get to the hospital, and I've never had an experience like this. I don't even know how to visualize it because I can't see anything, and I'm on drugs now. I'm on fentanyl and high and in pain, and something's happening. And I'm trying, and I don't drink a lot. I don't do drugs. My brain and my personality operates the best being sober. So when I'm not sober, I'm trying to be very coherent and figure out what's going on because my survival depends on it. So get to the hospital, x-rayed, surgeon comes in. It's a very bad break. I don't know if there's such thing as a good break. Gonna need surgery. None of that makes sense to me. Oh, I left out the fun part. They gave me laughing gas because they had to set me in a cast. I don't remember what came first. I think probably the x-ray. Got bad news, was going to have surgery. They'd have to put me in a cast then and there. They gave me laughing gas. And I remember just being super fun, super funny. And I do remember the surgeon saying, I've never had so much fun before. They were like, it's the only thing I knew how to do was just to be super entertaining because I was freaking scared. And this had happened with someone that I couldn't depend on for anything. And I won't even get into like that whole thing at the moment because I was just in this moment of all I can do is be present. So at some point between the x-rays being on laughing gas because they had to set me, and I remember that was such excruciating pain, probably more painful than having an IUD inserted into my cervix. It was just awful, but I was so high on laughing gas and I was just being as entertaining as I could possibly be because that just had me in survival mode, and I wanted everyone to feel good because I was not feeling good. And then everything kind of wore off, and the reality, I was on medication. They had to keep me medicated because if I wasn't going to be medicated, the pain would set in because they set me in a cast, and that particular hospital, I guess, specializes in bone surgery. So it meant I could be in surgery the next morning there. But the thing is there was a nursing shortage. We were still technically in a pandemic. And I said, I live in Calgary because that's the city I live in. I said, I'm actually really close to, and I said the name of the hospital. I said, I'm actually in the same area as this hospital. And the surgeon, he was so lovely. And this is why I left a 5-star review on Google for this hospital. He called the hospital, and arranged for me to be in surgery the next morning. He knew the surgeons that were on call. And he said, get in there 6 a.m. They'll get you into triage. You'll be taken care of. And this is why I do love Canadian healthcare. It's not perfect, but I was very well taken care of at this hospital and the second hospital. And for the life of me, I will be eternally grateful for that. It's the only thing that was keeping me calm. And by the time I got casted, this was again hospital number 1. I was like, okay, I decided, okay, I can get back home. Dude can drive. We can get me to the hospital the next morning. That's the easiest thing because at least I could spend the night in my bed in my house. I texted my dad and his wife. I texted my brother. My brother's power of attorney. He's the person in the case of emergency. My brother is the one that needs to be in the know. Texted my friends, sent them a photo of my cast. First thing I said was, I am fine. And at the time I was really active on Instagram. So I had gone dark because I was taking time off of online everything. But suddenly I post me in a cast. And I said, first thing was, I'm okay. But this happened. Just trying to make the best of it. So I left that hospital. I had to have the nurse show me how to be on crutches because I'd sprained my ankle, I think in 6th grade, and I had been on crutches for a little bit then, but I was very out of practice. And somehow I'd brought a second dress with me, which was really long, so they had to pin it up. They had to pin it up so I could, they wheeled me out of the hospital, but I had crutches. That's the only thing I had to pay for, that entire thing. Again, thank you, Alberta Healthcare. I only had to pay $27 to leave the hospital for the crutches. No bill. Well, that's not true. I would get a bill. So two hospitals I was in, surgery, casting, everything. I paid for crutches, $27, and the ambulance bill because I had not renewed my extended healthcare. So I had a $385, I think it was, to call an ambulance. Whatever. It's the only two things I had to pay for. Didn't even have to pay for physical therapy. I like that part of the story. Again, made me appreciate where I happened to be from. So we get me into my vehicle now as a passenger. And I then spent the next 2 hours comforting Buddy because he was so out of his element, so not able to cope. He could drive. But I found myself having to comfort him. And he was cold because he hadn't bothered to, for 2 hours, he was sitting in the vehicle, not even, and by then it was cold, even though this was like, this was in the summertime. It was the day it turned cold and he didn't want to waste gas. I'm like, that's the least of my concerns. Let the vehicle run. Who freaking cares? And the whole thing, I just realized this is not a person that I want with me in an emergency. I'm sorry. At least he could drive, thankfully. Turns out, though, he didn't even bring a wallet or anything like that with him on this particular day trip because I was in charge of everything. So, and nothing happened. He drove. We got frozen peas to help my leg, which was in a cast because I was going to get surgery the next morning. And they had given me a bunch of medication to take overnight. So we get back to my place. I just want to get this over and done with. I've got this person in my house. I immediately called my brother. I gave him all the information of the person that was with me. I introduced them over the phone. Look, when I'm in an emergency situation, I cover all bases as much as possible. I impress myself, but not really, because this is just how I am. And I said, okay, this is my brother. Brother, this is dude. Here's your guys' numbers. I'm going into surgery the next day. He's picking me up. I gave my brother all the information. My brother was, there. So he would know if something was going to happen. The hospital would call him. All that stuff. I just kept everybody in the know and just had to deal with this person in my house for the next few days. But whatever. He complied. He did not. Anything I needed, he was my butler. At this point, that was what he was good for. So the next day, obviously, the plans we had were not going to happen. I got to the hospital. And here's the thing. Okay, I'm going to stop for a second. This is a long episode. This is a long story. So if you're still with me, thank you for listening to this. Throughout all of this, I just learned in this whole experience on a personal level that if I'm going to share my life with somebody, if I'm going to trust somebody to be in my life, and this is something that happens over time. This is why I never wanted anything that was a whirlwind. Because emergencies happen. How does somebody handle a situation? How do you communicate? All these things suddenly were really, really present. And that was the important thing. More so than almost anything else. Did I feel safe? Did I feel secure? And just... I was at the point of almost being embarrassed. I was already kind of getting embarrassed to be seen with this person, but having to be wheeled into a hospital and having to explain things and just I did not like the feeling I was having here. And I just knew, I'm like, okay, universe, like, this is not my person. I get it. This person's not going to be in my life. I get it. So let me have a successful surgery. And yeah, you know what? I don't, I've spent a lot of time trying not to feel ill will or choosing not to feel ill will towards this person. But I have no patience for ineptness. And this person was doing the best that they could. But there's a reason why we have standards, And if this was my lesson to go, don't ever put yourself in, it's not even about putting yourself in that situation because you don't know. But when there's a part of you that knows that you need to feel a certain way, that you have the right to determine boundaries and your level of comfort and your level of safety. When you realize you're with someone who is making you question your sense of security, and I'm even just talking physical security, don't ignore that. So anyway, I get into surgery. I have got this hot pink pedicure, and I'm telling the nurses and surgeons and everybody that I'm super disappointed that I fell in flat shoes, and my nickname was Stiletto. I loved everybody that I encountered in that hospital. I felt so taken care of, so safe, nervous as all can be, but I was treated really well, cared for really well. It was the best sleep I've ever had. When they put you under, they intubate you, of course, so I just knocked me out. And the surgery happened. I woke up. And, they sent me to recovery. They were going to release me that evening. And that's the thing. It took me a while to fully wake up. And when I was in the recovery wing and had to let Buddy know that he had to come pick me up after a certain time. I was going to have supper there. They were going to feed me, and then I could finally eat. And then he was to pick me up. I knew that I did not want to associate with anybody on a romantic and sexual level for a long time. I just knew that I felt happier and safer being in the hospital than being around anyone who was saying that they wanted to have any kind of life with me in that way. And for it to be less than what I wanted, what I deserved, because I didn't even know at that point. But in that moment, waking up from surgery again, and in that moment of waking up after surgery and feeling safe and secure in a hospital, taken care of, it was such an epiphany. And this is not even the drugs talking. It was such an epiphany that I had been settling in that part of my life for so long, and I was over it. And even if that meant that I would never meet anybody that would be able to be a partner to me at the level that is meant for me and for me to reciprocate, because I was seriously going to have to lower my standards in every possible way, including intellectually, if I were going to have a relationship with this person. And I refused to do that. It even made me think about my companionship. The other funny part of the story is that when I called to let this guy know to come pick me up from the hospital, and he was driving all over the city looking for things and whatever, and that was fine. He was, I trusted him with my vehicle at least, somehow, and he was complaining about something, and my heart rate was going up, like they were coming into the room because they probably thought I was having a heart attack. And then the nurses are like, "We can't release you because your heart rate is so high." And my heart rate was 99. I do have a higher resting heart rate, but not that high. And it wouldn't come down because every time I thought about this guy, my heart rate would go up. Now, if that's not a sign that that's not the right person for you, I don't know what is. So eventually they realized they're just going to have to release me. And they did. And the next day we went to a movie because I had tickets to a movie, and I was going to have to learn life being on crutches for 7 weeks and not walking, and I did not know what my life was going to be like, but I was going to go to see this movie. It was The Suicide Squad #2, I think, the second one. Now, at the time, I had purchased tickets for the back row because I'm a back row girl, but when we got to the theater, I said, "Well, I just had ankle surgery. Can we have these tickets switched to the front row?" And of course, they gave it to us. The funny thing was, though, you're on pain meds. I didn't realize that I get horny on pain meds. So, sex still happened. I got that story. I've had sex in a cast. It wasn't bad. Again, sexually, my needs were met that way, but every other way, intellectually, emotionally, forget it. So we wrote out the week. He was incredibly helpful. He did everything I asked him to do, and I don't remember what else happened after that. I just remember being incredibly relieved when it was time for him to leave. And that was it. And then I decided to become celibate for a year. Until I went to San Francisco. But that's for another podcast episode. All right. I've spent a lot of time telling you this story about my broken ankle. Now, this is an experiment with this show of incorporating some important life lessons and being entertaining. Oh, I have to say it feels good to share that because this is the thing. I'm learning to release stored energy, things that I've carried around that don't necessarily bug me on a surface level. But this is one of those things, we go through experiences, they scar us to a point. I mean, I've had physical scars, whatever, those don't bother me. This experience doesn't necessarily bother me that it happened. It was a dark time, not being able to walk for 7 weeks. Then I was on opioids for 5 months. Physical therapy. I can't wear high heels. I can't walk on my toes. The things that I was used to doing. And at the same time, I am very comfortable walking around at the height I am. That was a huge hang up I had for my entire adult life, to be honest. I wore heels. I loved high heels. I mean, I love the high heel look. I loved how I walked, and I loved all of it. But for some reason, that was meant for me to let go. And I still wear them in front of my mirror here in my house. I'll look at myself in high heels, and sometimes I'll post photos of me in high heels, but I can't wear them. And I'm okay with that now. And there's been this whole journey of, okay, this happened. No, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's a permanent injury I have. And I went from never having chronic pain to having a chronic ankle condition. I walk well now, but it does limit me. I didn't even talk about the stuff that's in my ankle. So what had happened? So, because I still have hardware in my ankle. 3 years later, I have a metal plate and 4 screws. Now, my ankle they did 2 surgeries on it. They had, the bone broke. My ankle became unstable. The deltoid ligament flipped, and that's the thing that still gives me the most grief is my deltoid ligament injury. They had to flip that. I had a stabilizing rod pose across my ankle because, if I were to lift my foot and I felt this in my cast, I could not feel my ankle. It's like my ankle would be completely disassociated from my foot to my calf. It was the weirdest thing. It was like an ankle had fallen out. I couldn't feel it anymore. So that's what happened. So they had to put a rod in, and I had a 3rd surgery to have that removed a few months later, and I still have that screw. It's a big screw that they put in to stabilize my ankle. And I said, can I keep it? And I kept it, and I still have it. And they removed a 2nd screw, but I still have 4 screws in my ankle. I've got a metal plate. I can feel the screws if you touch my ankle, and I've got scars, and I have to go through body scanners when I go through the airport now. None of that bothers me. It's a story. And at the same time, I had a lot of realizations. I learned what love bombing was. I recognized during the time I was talking to this person and getting to know this person and how easy it is to get sucked into an idea that's really not an idea at all. I mean, it's an idea, but I want to say it's the wrong idea, but you don't know. And so, I made these decisions. This is what happened. I never want to have that again. But at the same time, I kind of needed to go through that. And I don't love that it happened. It's a story that, I get to tell and share, and it's an experience, so here's the things that I really learned to appreciate in that time. I appreciate my family support. Cute story. So my brother has 2 children, and the youngest nephew was 11 at the time, and I hired him to be my butler for a week after surgery. So it was great. It was cute. Also, living in a 3-story townhouse with 26 stairs when you're on crutches is really uncomfortable. I slid down on my butt a lot and crawled around a lot. Oh, there's a lot of funny things. Like, oh my gosh, like you just, I almost think there needs to be a part 2. I don't think there's going to be. But you learn a lot about yourself. You learn... It made me look like I went through a dark time. I did not know what it was going to be like. You just every day I was in bed. I'm a stomach sleeper. I'm in this cast. I can't sleep on my stomach. I couldn't sleep, trying to shower. But you do it. I did it. I got through it one day at a time. It was hard. And that's just for a freaking ankle. So I really do have compassion for people who are really going through health challenges, who have been through health challenges that are much more complex than a broken ankle. This, and I don't say this lightly because this still has affected my life. And the point is so this was life-changing enough, just having a broken ankle. I've always been healthy otherwise. And I guess I want to make this point too. This is something when it comes to sharing your stories, because it is really easy for society to make us feel like, well, this is only an ankle. This is a bone that broke. You know, for me, I look at it, it was my left ankle. So luckily it doesn't affect my driving because it's not my driving foot. You know, it's really, it can be easy to write off our personal experiences because compared to a lot of other people, it's nothing. You know, this happened at a time in my life where I didn't have to worry about going to a job outside my house because, you know, I could be in bed for 7 weeks. You know, I also live in a country where I could leave 2 hospitals and not have a bill. And many things, like there were a lot of things that I became very appreciative of, which was good. It was something that I needed to look at, I guess. That's how I choose to see it. And yes, by comparison, it was very minor compared to what many other people go through. But it's not about that. It's not about, this is the thing. And I think, and again, this is a point I do want to make, is that I'm not here to share sob stories. It's not, you know, we have some people experience things that are horrifying to me that I probably won't ever experience. And at the same time, that can make it feel like, well, anything I go through is not worth sharing. There's no value in sharing. But I'm not going to discount. I know better at this age not to discount the experiences I've had. I'm choosing to share this as a humorous event with some life lessons, and there's a little bit of scary elements in it for sure. But it's still my life experience. And this is what I choose to do with it, right? So whatever you're going through, and at the same time, if you're feeling that you do want to, maybe not in the moment, because it's hard to share what we're going through in the moment, because it helps to have space from the event to where you are now, having had a moment to digest, to process what you need to process. But if you do feel like you have something you want to share about your life experience, and you feel that it's not worth sharing because it's not an epic story, it's not the kind of heartbreak that makes People magazine. It's not the level of tragedy that inspires massive GoFundMe accounts or whatever. Don't let that hold you back from sharing that experience. I realize this is a weird segue. I don't think I was planning on doing that, but I just feel compelled to say that because, you know, again, society likes something huge and epic, and it presents it like that's the only thing that can make a difference, is by going through something so horrendous that you get to share, and that's the only thing that's going to help people and get attention. Because that's not necessarily true. Don't discount what you've gone through. It's there to. I don't think that we really know why we go through what we go. I mean, we make choices, and there are consequences, and consequences is not doesn't have to be a bad word, by the way. There are reactions, there are consequences. Things happen based on the choices that we make, right? Doesn't matter what the choice is. And we can dwell on it. That's your choice. We can go through it turn it into something, a podcast, whatever, art, a story, a cautionary tale, an inspiring tale, what have you. It's up to you. But we're all going to go through stuff. We're always going through stuff. But again, I think my point here is that if you do feel like you want to share something and you don't feel it is going to be of value because it's not the kind of story that makes news, don't let that stop you from sharing it or doing something with it or creating something out of it. I just want to say that. I just feel really compelled to say that. And also, when you're feeling a little bit off about something, because someone's really trying to, I think when someone's really trying to make you feel like you're their entire world, just be careful because you might end up with a broken ankle. So that's that story. That turned me off of romance. I was never a super romantic person. Still had hopes for something, and that hasn't stopped. But this gave me some perspective. This really did. Someone asked me shortly after the accident happened. They asked me why I thought, or if I knew why this happened. Aside from the fact that I had lost my balance. And see, I know the answer. Here's the thing. I knew immediately, and probably before meeting this person in person, but I knew that this was not a person for me. But I wasn't saying no to all of his visions of our life together, because I already knew, no, this is not going to happen. But I didn't say anything. I just kind of went along with it and said, because I thought, well, this is just a week, right? But perhaps life just thought that I was going to go along with something for a while that I had no business going along with, because this is, and I look back and go, oh my God, girl, this was so not the person for you. And at the time being in it, you just get swept up in lust, whatever. That's all it was. And that got turned off pretty quickly after dude left. So, that was a very big turning point for me, was not to settle for anything less and not to just go along with something because it's there, not to go along with something because I like the idea, but a person can't fit into an idea. Like there's more to that. And this has been 3 years since this particular incident. And in the last 2 years of really, really absorbing and thinking about what it is that I want when it comes to life partner. And this is not something I'm going to expand on now because this has already been an hour. But, it set me on a journey. It set me on a deeper journey. Because I always believed, since I was young, I believed that I would meet my person later in life. And by that, I meant over 35. Well, I'm over 35 now. Still not in a rush, but it made me aware of how I feel interacting with people. And I'm not even talking on a romantic level. It could be platonic, friendship, whatever. I learned a lot about how my body responds to people, energy, many, many things. Unfortunately, it came through having an accident this way. But it happened. So I learned what I needed to from that. Okay, well, that's how I ended up with a broken ankle. Now you know the full story. I have not mentioned any names. I have not mentioned any names. Thank you for listening. I do not know how to close out these episodes yet. Currently, this podcast is tied to a newsletter. So in the show notes, you will see a link to the newsletter. You can support this podcast by subscribing to the newsletter, which will release the episodes directly to your inbox. And let people know this exists. If there's something that's entertained you and you want to share it with others, this podcast is not specific to any kind of demographic. Anyone is welcome to listen to this. It's just to entertain and inspire in the way it's going to entertain and inspire. I really don't have any control over that. This is me sharing my personal stories, and I'm more than happy to do so. So thank you very much for listening, and we will chat in the next episode.